And my name's Kirsty Child. I've always been interested in art from a young age, and I've like sort of dabbled with like, you know, regards to like what the themes are I like to play about with. And it's been like a practice of like sort of like mixing like different styles and then like developing my own style over a period of time. Now went into like higher education with it, doing fine art in university, but it was only later down the line that I realised like what it was I was actually like doing wrong in like I suppose like having a sense of integrity with the artwork. So before it just started off with like being like purely for enjoyment, which was like something that I should have maybe focused more on, as opposed to like just the compulsory production of work. And then like quantity wise, because then like sort of like how it sort of like affects you and the messages that you're able to relay, sort of like, you know, the sort of truth of them and how you can sort of like emulate them towards other people. That was something that only sort of like hit me like years after completing the uni course. And then you sort of like start realizing how certain things that you perhaps weren't like paying attention to or even understanding entirely were so pivotal in how you sort of develop your practice further on. So I think maybe if I'd have gone back over, I'd have done a hell of a lot better as well, than like with like sort of experience and my art practice now. I'm doing work that's a lot more enjoyable to do as well nowadays.
Right, it's really interesting. So did you go to uni straight out of school, did you?
In college, it was from college. I did it in college, and that was probably where I got to enjoy just the like sort of experimenting with the mixed medium side of it, because I'd always been interested in doing things that were like aesthetically like sort of like dynamic, because there was always this thing that used to circulate within the university sort of like you know, with regards to the philosophy and how we had to discuss in lectures what constituted as art. And it was constant, like we were always like trying to tackle like why we should see certain things, why we shouldn't see certain things as artwork. And it's like, so you sort of like after a period of time, you sort of like understand how the sort of hierarchy in the art world like sort of like isn't necessarily the best like environment in order to encourage genuine creativity. So when I came away from that sort of form of education and started experiencing like genuine life experiences that had a better like sort of like sort of like forms of inspiration for my own work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've learned quite a lot because I'm not really a visual artist. I dabble a bit in collage and stuff like that, but finding out that there's, you know, it's not just like your work's really, really appreciated and suddenly you're in a gallery. There's like all kinds of shenanigans that goes on behind the scenes by which process you kind of qualify to be exhibited in one of the that's not necessarily about your work itself. So yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Seems like quite a barrier.
And that's all. It's like it does cause a barrier, especially when people in like sort of how people sort of consider it as well. You sort of go back to like, you know, especially if you go like sort of like, because I'm from like, you know, like sort of like just working class sort of background, and how it sort of even applies to them because it puts so many barriers up that they'll be willing to bring certain you know, artists like or artistic practice that they want to use for their own gains in like how they can like see like circulate any sort of like profit like financially. And also it has the appeal of being a working class tortured artist and how they can sort of like, you know, harness it and like turn it into this like sort of package sort of like, you know, person that they can like sort of either like they can like sort of gain their own sort of like satisfaction from it. But it's all about the sort of, I suppose, the snobbery and the like lack of accessibility for everybody else to appreciate art. You know, because it's like if you ask somebody else, "Oh, are you into art?" To any like, you know, run of the mill person, like from a normal like working class environment, like, "Oh yeah, I like tattoos," or "Oh yeah, I like so and so," like that's all right. I like my comics, but they're never sort of like encouraged to actually sort of embed themselves in it and all of its benefits. it does sort of like, I think that's why, like when you said about this raising Teesside up into it, it gets dismissed so much. I mean, you know, there's always the opportunities and avenues to go down, like with the education and everything, but in regards to actually making it so available that it encourages like a sort of culture within it, that's quite lacking. And that's why when you sort of like told me about the project, I thought this is going to be something really, really good and interesting.
Yeah, I think so. And I just think, you know, there's been so much happening over the past year or so, and to make art more accessible to everybody in general, like places like Pineapple Black, which was, you know, it's used to be New Look, and it's right on the car park there on Hill Street. So it's kind of almost unavoidable to engage to some capacity with that work. And I just love the way that, you know, they don't call themselves a gallery. It's just like an alternative art space. And
Yeah.
it's like children's drawings. And so it just, you know, because even I, when I lived in London, would be really, really intimidated about going to certain art galleries, because I just didn't feel like that was the kind of place where they wanted people like me. And I think art's too important to keep hidden away. So yeah, I think that's really what it's about at the moment, is opening up the arts to people that don't think that they're interested in them, because they find that they are. So can we talk a little bit about your own practice? Like I've seen some of your work, which I absolutely love. Is it Ravery series?
Thank you.
Can you tell us about the background of that, how you create it and why?
Well, it's been fun. It stemmed from my experience and like sort of affection for various parts of, like, you know, when I was in the very, very last stages of university, like my last year, when I was supposed to, you know, when the pressure's on, I ended up developing psychosis. And it was because of like recreational drug use. And when I'd watched certain sort of programs in regards to the rave culture, like there's a series called Space that has elements of it in that culture, and that was the point that I missed out on. Just like, you know, being able to sort of be a part of that sort of appreciation, this like this state of collective, like, you know, all of a sudden an overwhelming feeling of like, I suppose it could be described as like enlightenment, or even though it's like it is a very, very dark and scary journey when you're going through mental health issues, and how it can manifest itself. It also proved like incredibly like awe-inspiring as well, in regards to like how I would be able to like appreciate conversations. So I'd already been like interested in like sort of satire based work, and sort of like how people's interactions, and they can be so fascinating, just seeing run-of-the-mill conversation like occur in a friendship group, or around you, and just the silly little things that make it like sort of beautiful or quite like intriguing, that maybe isn't appreciated if it's like, you know, there's like in a different environment. So just picking up on those little conversations, and also like the little traits that those people had, being able to then like integrate them into my own sort of art depictions. It was like more, it was more able to like sort of flourish in a more like sort of consistent way during that period. So I guess that was like, even though it was a very, very scary and daunting period of time for me, it also provides the sort of like, you know, the art therapy sort of like elements to it as well. So that's why a lot of the sort of pictures that I have, I always love to like focus on things that are like quite like controversial and like shocking, but not for the pure. That's what I mean, you, when we're talking about the sort of like misconceptions and the sort of values that are held in the sort of hierarchy of the art world, even though there are various like sections of it, it's like it's became the norm. For instance, like with the Turner Prize, for it just to be the case of who can do the least amount of something in order to do the most shocking thing. And it's because it sort of like gives that sort of thing of like, I've got a message to say, and if you don't get it, that's not down to me being able to display it so that it conveys the message I want to give to people overall, and also aesthetically it's like, you know, intriguing. It's about just being able to get away with saying like all of these crazy little things without actually like being able to emulate it in a way that it sort of resonates with another individual. And it's like, it's sort of a little bit encouraged within the university environment to a degree, not always, like obviously, because everyone has their own points of view. But I noticed it more and more and how it was sort of the social norm. And it was like, that was why I sort of like started seeing why all of these other artists I'd encountered in my past had sort of like been so like interesting to me, and I could see where I was like getting inspiration from them. And it's like when you were saying there about the how the art world can sort of like cause these barriers, I think it's because it's like it's also encouraged and also like sort of taught to certain students that it's not about being able to develop a talent in being able to display the aesthetic as being one of the pivotal things. It's more about what the message is, and also not in any way being similar to another artist's work prior, because it's that like sort of taboo of, well, it's been done before, and it's been done, and hasn't that been done by so and so. It's like, oh, you know, it's like you're sort of apologetic by it, because it's like it's not entirely brand spanking new. And it's like, but that's the thing that makes it like sort of accessible, because if things have different like sort of interpretations and values, or like the manner that they're represented from all of these different sources of inspiration, that allows more people to be able to access them and have it resonate with them. So when I do these like mad like sort of twisted or dark pictures, it's like it's always like trying to like sort of harness like sort of combining something that's like got a bit of beauty to it, or a little bit like being a bit scary, and trying to like sort of like combine them together so that even though they're not necessarily sort of like entirely unoffensive to somebody seeing them, they're then still able to see that, all right, but I can appreciate that part of it, and maybe that's why they've done it. So that's why like a lot of my work is sort of like designed like in such a way that it at least sort of considers how it looks as well, as opposed to just like what I'm trying to say. That's so waffled on a bit there, but yeah.
No, it's great. It's really interesting. It's you know, all that kind of frame of reference of what's acceptable for some people in the art world and not others, and how it's not necessarily individual merit that always is the thing that's most considered. Yeah, I've got quite interested to, I mean, we've already touched on it there with mental health issues and things like that, but in general, other than like working towards an exhibition or having a book or something, what do you think it is that the arts does for you personally? What do you think it kind of part it plays in people's lives and in society more generally? I mean, outside of the visual arts, all the arts, whether it's film, dance, photography, whatever. What do you think people get from being involved?
It's a really difficult one, actually. So like sort of it's difficult to sort of like to distill down to just one sort of like I suppose what it means to me personally is it's a great outlet for my like sort of like wanting to get things down. And obviously there's like that sort of thing of being able to show something and have it appreciated, and that kind of like sense of like, oh right, so like I've got an idea and I'm able to sort of like in such a way that it either like, you know, supports me financially, it's either appreciated, it looks good and I'm happy with it and I'm proud of it myself. But like if it's like regards like a sort of like collective and how it impacts on a community, and also like reference to trying to think now, give an example. One of my favorite artists, he's called William Blake, and I saw a documentary on him not long ago, and it sort of went into his background life, and I was looking at and I saw more and more of it, and I realized these are things I've seen before in other things. Like you said, one of the depictions in Red Dragon, I was like, that's where that's from. I didn't even realise. And then it's showing this array of his work. And there's one with Lucifer, and he's got like a compass, and he's like sort of crouched down, and I think it's the power of symbolism. And when you've got an understanding of like what you were able to relate to or attach a sense of meaning to or value with, the more sort of outwardly like outward reaching and positive it is in its maybe its motive or what's trying to relay, that can then have a knock-on effect that either makes people more inclined to consider these things. So it's like with certain things that have been picking up on happening over in like places like I like listening to Jordan Peterson, and he speaks a lot about symbolism and the importance of it, and how religious and the sort of values that whether we consciously or subconsciously hold them, like or think that they're relevant, it can't be avoided. So even though you may not necessarily condone like the doctrinization of religion, you can still look at something like a stained glass window and the architecture of a cathedral and be like awe-inspired by it. And I think that's why it's like it comes down to this sense of like not trying to like eradicate this like relevance of sovereignty of the individual. So he presses on, it's like all of these key things that are qualities that we need. If you were able to represent them better and better in somewhere like you whether it's in like a building or how you design something, or you're even able to just relay a message in a creative way, it encourages people to consider these things and be more thoughtful. So the more you were able to like cause this manifestation of positive creativity, then it stops it from being maybe like diverted and distorted in a negative way, and hence why you get things like mental health not be having a useful outlet. Oh, yeah.
I'm just gonna go pick the bed up.
Oh, and I'll see you in a bit. Love you. I love you. Sorry. And so if it's either sort of stopped or condemned or made to be say a point of view or something you wish to relate to someone, and you're able to vocalize or express yourself or positively channel something like a mental health set of thought processes. And I can only like say that in how it helped me when I was going through psychosis. If I didn't have that capability of having an outlet and expressing what was going on in my mind, and in a safe space where it's not condemned and even made illegal, or you're not allowed to be able to have this like dialogue in any way, then that can cause it to manifest in a very negative and like detrimental manner. And I think that's why the creative arts are so vital to us as a community.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, I agree with 90% of what Jordan Peterson says. Vigorously disagree with 10% of it, but we can't all be. That's what we're all.
Yeah.
We can't expect anyone to be perfect. So, what about lockdown? Has that affected your work, and what future plans do you have in place? Are you planning on anything, or are you just kind of waiting to see how things unfold?
Well, I've got a course that I've been doing at the moment. It's been focusing on doing teaching in like assistant teaching, because I wanted to gradually sort of like build up confidence into getting into like the sort of like working, but it is purely in the sort of motivation of becoming an art teacher eventually. So that would be like because I'd love to be able just be able to like sort of see somebody like doing work, and then like just sort of be able to have the techniques in showing them how they're able to develop it, even if it makes like give them a comic strip or something, like have a look at this, you'll like it. Just like passing it and just seeing like, because I'll go back to that William Blake again. Like if you looked at his like when you look at his like pieces, imagine somebody like him and his like sort of like capability to do his pictures in this sort of like day and age, he'd be like producing like these really dark, like graphic novel artworks, I imagine, because it reminds me of something, and that's where it's sort of, you can see where other people have been inspired, whether consciously or not. But I think with Corona, with the Corona lockdown, it's been like, it's had positive and negative effects, but I've been doing more artwork while the lockdown has been occurring. So that's another way like creativity can be harnessed, and like a way of like sort of dealing with the mental health issues associated with lockdown. Because you'd mentioned about like, the lockdown thing, so like, well, it'd be an idea to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder what Blake would have made of all this, and what kind of incredible artwork he would have produced, because I think a lot of this is speaking to sort of archetypes and that kind of collective unconscious. I think there's, it's kind of palpable and kind of in the air. I guess for most people, having thought that they lived in a certain world, because particularly in this country, since the Second World War, there's been no kind of major upheaval of this nature where the entire nation's been affected. So yeah, very interesting to see what that's the collective psyche. Oh mate, well it's great talking to you, and I can't wait to be allowed out in the real world so we can meet up and have a good old table banging session and put the world to rights over a couple of bottles or something. Absolutely. So
yeah, you got me very interested. It's like I do like going on a pilgrimage. I'm like, you said pilgrimage. I was like, oh, I'm going. Like, I need to go and look into it definitely, because it looks awesome.
Yeah, we'll get the pilgrims back in town. Definitely. We will. We're all going to have a massive party. I mean, I got some Arts Lab funds set aside for the auxiliary were good enough to give us 200 quid just before lockdown, and the members voted almost unanimously to spend it all on a party. So that will happen as soon as we're allowed to happen, and I look forward to meeting you in person then.
Yeah, I do too, and I've really enjoyed the meeting. Thank you for actually bringing me on board. Appreciated it. Thank you.
It's been a total pleasure. Take care, Kirsty.
Yeah, you too. Take care. Thank you. Bye.
Toodle pip.